Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, good morning. You can hear, yeah?
Yes.
Oh, coffee would be good. That's life. For coffee, we need Mashiach.
Oh yeah, enough without Mashiach, Rabbi.
All right. Wait another minute. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos Daf Kuf Lamed. We are starting the 19th Perek Rabbi Eliezer the Milah. We're going to be learning about Machshirei Milah, preliminaries to the Milah. A bris Milah itself is done on Shabbos as long as the baby was born naturally, and Shabbos is the 8th day. Milah Bismana is Doicha Shabbos. That's learned from a pasuk that we have in Tazria. It says, Ubayoim Hashmini Yimoil Doicha Shabbos. Question is, not the Milah itself, but what about preliminaries? What about certain activities that are needed to get ready for the Bris Milah? Are they also Doicha Shabbos or not? That is a machlokes Tanoim. And as we'll learn in this Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer holds, yes, Machshirei Milah is Doicha Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva, and the Gemara is going to refer to the Shita of Rabbi Akiva as the Chachamim, they are machmir, and they say no, that Machshirei Milah is not Doicha Shabbos. We're going to learn about a concept known as Chibuve Mitzvah. There's a concept of us showing that we love to keep the mitzvahs. We're going to learn a little bit about the time, Zman HaSakana, the Goyim throughout our history, every now and then prohibited Yidden of making a Bris Milah, and that affects certain practices, as we'll speak out. We're going to introduce a concept that before a halacha is unanimously accepted in a certain topic, there is a concept of, in your place, your Rav, you follow the psak of your Rav. If you live in another place and there's another Rav and he has another opinion, then you are able to follow the psak of that Rav. We're going to learn of the concept of the lekek suba de leirama batigra. There is no marriage contract in which there is no quarrel. There's always some sort of machlokes when it comes to a marriage contract. We're going to have on Daf Kuf Lamed a Gemara that we had also on Daf Mem Tes, which is the sugya of Elisha Baal Kinafayim. And the Iker, the most of the time we're going to spend on Daf Kuf Lamed Amud Beis will be about reviewing Hilchas Eruvin. Now, as we mentioned already a couple of times, Midah Iraisa, if something is defined as a Rishus HaYachid, Midah Iraisa, you can carry in there. From my house to my yard, from my house to our yard, from my house directly to your house, from one chutzner to another, from a house into a roof, from a roof to a roof. There's a domain that's called a karpef. A karpef is a enclosed domain, but it's not for residential purposes. Now you have a very large karpef that we'll learn later that already midrabanan has a din like a karmelis, but we're not speaking about the huge karpef. There's different types of Rishus HaYachid. On a Doiraisa level, one is allowed to carry from one to the other. We already mentioned that midrabanan, it has to belong to the same owner. That's the way we word it. That's the way we paskin. But if I'm carrying from my house even to our joint yard, we have to make what we call a eruvei chatzeres. We're going to be introducing on Daf Kuf Lamed a shita of Rab Shimon. We're going to learn a lot about Rab Shimon in Eruvin that has a very interesting approach to Eruvin. If it's from a house to any other type of Rishus HaYachid, you have to have an Eruv Chatzeres. But if something is coming from a Chatzer, if something when Shabbos came in wasn't a Chatzer, and you want to carry it on Shabbos from that Chatzer to another Chatzer, or from that Chatzer to a Gag, or if something began in a Gag on a roof, and you want to take it from one roof to a Chatzer, or from one roof to another roof, or same thing with a Karpe, if Rab Shimon holds, you do not need to have a Eruv Chatzeres. The Eruv Chatzeres is only if a house, it's only if the article began Shabbos while it was in a bias, and how that will become very relevant to various stories about what happened when the Machshir Milah was not prepared before Shabbos, and a lot more. Let's start with the beginning of the Perek. Again, we are on Kuf Lamed, Amid Aleph. On the top of the Amid begins the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Right, Milah itself is a given, like we mentioned, this Doicha Shabbos. If Milah is Bismana, and if the baby was born naturally. What about preliminaries? For example, Im Lehevi Klima out of Shabbos, if one did not bring the knife that's needed, the Ismail, for the Milah, to the location of the bris before Shabbos, Mevir b'Shabbos, you are allowed to bring it on Shabbos, even if that will mean that you are doing an act of Hoitzah Mida Oiraisa, number one. Number two, when you do that, when you carry the knife, it has to be Megula, it has to be exposed, and we'll see in the Gemara more details. Why does it need to be exposed? Now, before we go on, let's right away learn the top Tosfos. What's the issue here? If you did not bring the knife to the location of the baby, and Eliezer holds, well, Machshir Milah is also Doicha Shabbos, but we also learned the concept, and we keep on learning it, that Heicha, the Efsher L'Shanuye, L'Shaninon. Even when one is allowed to be Machal Shabbos, you try to minimize the Chilul as much as you could, based on the rule that we learned. And we also just reviewed it, that Achai Noisa Satzmai. That means that biblically, if you carry a human being, biblically, you're not violating Chotzah, you're only violating an Issur D'Rabbanan. So the Kasha Tosfos is, look inside the top Tosfos, in Taimar, the Yoviu Hatino Ketzel Kli, bring the baby to the Keli. Why are you allowed to bring the knife to the baby? Move the baby. The Hashda, why is moving the baby better? Leki Issur Shabbos Klal, Midoiraisa, I want to add, because the Achai Noisa Esatzmai. So Tosfos gives two answers. Answer number one is, interestingly, that since after the Bris Milah, the baby will have to be brought back to his mother, and the act of the cut makes the baby into a chayla. So the baby then becomes so weak, it's as if he's bound. That living baby no longer will be carrying himself. He won't be helping the person balancing himself because he's ill, he's in pain. So on the way back, it's going to be an act of carrying Midoi Raisa. That's answer number one. Answer number two on Tosfos Oidya Shleimer, Kivin the Yoser Bekal Yavi Hakeli, right? Mishayavi Atinuk Shari Rabbi Eliezer. Big chiddush. Since it's easier to bring the knife, to schlep the knife versus to schlep the baby, even though schlepping the knife is a Hitzah Doirais. And even if we're going to say that even on the way back, carrying the baby, even though the baby is not feeling well, still we will apply Chai Noisa Satzmai. Nevertheless, since it's easier to bring the knife, that Machshir Milah is Doicha Shabbos, Ad Kedei Kach, do what's easier, even if there is a greater violation. Now, that's a huge chiddush. Let's go back into the Mishnah. Okay, so we still have to explain what's Megula. We'll get that in the Gemara. But during the times of danger, the Romans, they did not allow us to do Bris Milah. Recently here in Frisco, in Monaco, they were already introducing bills to ban Bris Milah. It's nothing new. So when, God forbid, there's such a takana, and by the Romans, it was a danger, because if you were to do it, they would crucify you. So then, taka, you can't carry the knife, migula, mechaseyu, but you have to have edim that are going to witness that what you are carrying is a knife for a milah, and not, says Rashi, v'lo yechashdu'u, that's Rashi here, that people should not be choshid that you are being machal Shabbos. I just want to say a few words that people should know, that one should not confuse Marasayin and Chashad. Marasayin means that if I'm going to do something, people will see what I'm doing. They're not going to be choshid me. They're going to think that what I'm doing is allowed to be done. and they're going to follow suit, I will be a bad influence. That's called Marasayim. Chashad is everyone knows you can't carry. Alama, there's also an opinion that I don't want to do something that would make people be chosheh that I'm violating. So Adam have to see that the carry that you're carrying is under your garments. There's a bulge, but it's a knife of Emilah. Back inside the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer, when he goes into not only carrying a knife, but what about preliminaries that are even further removed from the act of the bris? How far back could you violate the Shabbos? Says Rabbi Eliezer, koisim, eitzim. Wow, you can knock trees down, cut trees down. Lasa is pachamin. What do you need trees for? To make coals? Lasa is barzel, or lasa is kli barzel. It's all of those steps that need to be done to make the knife from the beginning. Making the coals is also allowed to be done if you don't have a knife. Klal, Rabbi Akiva argues with Rabbi Eliezer with a klal. Kol b'lacha she'efshel asoisim erev Shabbos. If you could have done it before, then eino doiches haShabbos. And if that means you have to delay the bris to Sunday, so be it. Only activities, or actually maybe with the parentheses, the bris milah itself, she'i efshel asoisim erev Shabbos. He also learns from Ubayim Hashmini Yimal from Tazria that milah bezman is doiches Shabbos, but only milah itself, or anything that could not have been done before, that is taka doiches Shabbos. Okay, so the Mishnah says that Rabbi Eliezer, who allows you to carry the knife, says it has to be carried exposed. Megula, why? Elyahu, time of the Rabbi Eliezer, and it has to be carried megulas either because of chibuv mitzvah. You want people to see that you're mechabev the mitzvah of milah to the point that milah is greater than Shabbos. No, it's chibuv mitzvah doesn't mean that you love mitzvahs. It's not about you. It's about showing, you see, milah is greater than Shabbos. So that's going to give people an additional kavod and understanding and love to the mitzvah of bris milah. You don't want people to think that you're carrying anything other than what you are allowed to. Let Rabbi Eliezer that machshila milah is doiches Shabbos. And the may nafkemina, whether it's chibuv mitzvah or chashada, the Gemara says pashut la asuye mechus al pi edim. In other words, it's not zman hasakana. Am I allowed to show two people? Listen, I'm carrying a knife. I want you to know I'm not being mechalal Shabbos, and bring it. But then no, you want to show people that milas doiches Shabbos. Then megula in mechus. However, if it's only because of chashada, then afila mechusa, even shaloi b'shas hasakana, shaper dami. So now that we gave enough kamina, says the Gemara, mai. So itmar, we're going to have a one answer. Amar Rabbi Levi, that like Amara Rabbi Eliezer Ella l'chibuv mitzvah. In other words, if it's not bezman hasakana, you may not carry it mechusa, even if you have edim. And now that we have the answer, Tanya nami hachi, clearly miviyoi migula ve'eina miviyah mechusa divrei Rabbi Eliezer. And here the Braisa, unlike the Mishnah, uses a double expression. The double expression is to be medayik. No, don't bring it mechusa, even al piyeh. Amar Ravashi masnisanami daiko, because it says in our Mishnah only ubishas hasakana mechasei al piyedim. So be medayik from that. Besakana in, shaloi besakana loi, and indeed shma mino bishum chibuv mitzvah shma mino. Okay, now bishas hasakana. You have to show edim, and that's chshad. So the Gemara has a very interesting question. Tanya idach. We learned in another brayso meviu megula v'nei mechusa divrei Rabbi Eliezer. However, Rabbi Yehuda oimer mishum Rabbi Eliezer that mehagim hoyu v'shas hasakana shoyu meviin mechusa al pi edim. And now we boyelahu edim de ka'amar means iu v'chad. Or does it mean hu v'trei? What does edim mean? Normally edim means two. But here the Gemara has a havamina that maybe edim over here means a side of you, someone else. Why is that? It makes sense. Why is that? Because it's only because of chshad. And to take away chshad, maybe one person is enough. And indeed, Tashema, u'basakodim echasal pi edim. So says the Gemara, I amrat b'shleim hu trei shapir. Eli amrat hu v'chad, my edim. How can you call this edim? What's interesting is that why doesn't the Gemara make the same deal from the Baraisa. How is the Mishnah different than the Baraisa? Just to be medayik. In the Baraisa, the words are mevi'en mechusa al pi edim. In the lashon in the Mishnah is mechaseu al pi edim. There must be a deal with that. But from the Mishnah, let's be medayik. So the Gemara says no. That should Edim doesn't mean that they testify over here, right? Al pi edim. That's the difference. From the Baraisa, it says al pi edim. The Mishnah says, mechaseu al pi edim. Mechaseu al pi edim. Al pi edim can mean you and someone else are kosher edis in another scenario. But indeed, over here, you only have to have one, and the Gemara doesn't answer the baya, but it doesn't accept any proof from the words edim, because indeed, it makes sense that for chashad, one will be enough. Okay, weiter in the Mishnah. Right, even steps that are further removed from the bris, machshirei mila, cutting the trees to make coals, is also permitted. Tanach, that for many generations there wasn't a clear psak din, and therefore that's the rule. If there isn't a unanimous psak din, you follow the psak of the Rav, who's the mara of your asra. So b'mekoymai shel Rabbi Eliezer, hayakarsim eitzim lasis p'chamim lasis barzil b'Shabbos. And now that we mentioned how this was only done by Mekoymai of Rabbi Eliezer, now we're going to go me'inyan le'inyan, that by Mekoymai shel Rabbi Yossi Haglili, hayaoichlin basar oif b'cholov. And as we know, right, there's a three-way machlokes tanoim, and even according to those opinions who hold that midah oiraisa, having psar oif with cholov is permitted, but the Chachamim made a gzeira, made a siyag. If you're going to have chicken and milk, you might end up having meat and milk. Rabbi Yossi Haglili never undertook such a takana. And indeed, if you live in his makom, then you can follow his psak din and have b'sar oif b'cholov. And indeed, says the Gemara story that Levi ikla lebei Yosef rishba. So there was a Yosef, a trapper. He was a big hunter, and Levi went there. And Kiribu lei reisha the tafsa b'chalva. They brought a machlasas archim. They brought a head of a peacock that was made together with milk. Now, guys, we just learned in last DAF, interestingly, right? What did the Gemara say? That meya reisha bezuzah, that a head of an animal has so little nutrition. Only if for one zuz can you buy 100 heads, should you buy it? Doesn't matter. It wasn't about nutrition. He wanted, again, chibuve. He wanted to show the chadivus. He gave him a head of a peacock with milk. When Levi went back to his teacher, to Rabbi, so Levi was menschlich. He didn't make a stink. He just didn't eat it. Rabbi says, what are you doing? You just not eat it. Amai loy, sishamtinu, you should have put him into a chedim. And that's something that's done when people violate Isuri D'Rabbanan. And you see that in that Zman, some people did not yet accept it. You should have been much more forceful than just not eating it. So Amalei, so Levi tells Rabbeinu HaKadosh, no, Asrei de Rabbi Yehuda B'Seida Haba. And Va'aminan, I thought to myself, Dilma Darish Lahu, that maybe Rabbi Yehuda ben B'Seida is following the Psak Din of Rabbi Yossi Haglili. And the Tanan, as we learned, Rabbi Yossi Haglili Yomer. On one hand, it says, and this is a pasuk, one pasuk in Parshas Re'eh. The same pasuk begins with the words Lo Yisreichu Kol Nevela. Then it says in that pasuk that Lo Yisevashel Gedi B'Chalei V'Imar. So from where we say Es Sha'asar Mishum Nevela, anything that is included in the Isur of Nevela is included L'chur in the Isur of Basar B'Chalav, and therefore Asal Vashel B'Chalav and Oif. So one would think, and that's taka one shita, that Oif B'Chalav is also Doiraisa. So one would think that Oif Sha'asar Mishum Nevela also Yachol Yehei Asar L'Vashel B'Chalav. For that, it says, Talmud Loimer, Bachalev Imai, why Imai, to be Medayik, Yatsa only a meat that its mother gives milk. And that's not the case by a bird, that's not the case by a fowl. Yatsa Oif She'en Lechalev Ein, which is not included in the Isir. And again, according to Rabbi Yossi Haglili, they didn't even make a Rabbanon. And if you are Ba'asrei of Rabbanon that follow that Psak Din, so interestingly, it's not that Levi ate it. It's not that if I go to a house that they serve rice on Pesach because they eat rice on Pesach, it doesn't mean that I can eat it. It just means that I cannot criticize them because they're following their ruling at that time, their minig. So I can't, but they could. That was the case over here. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. In other words, they prepared even machshir milah b'Shabbos, and therefore they never delayed the bris milah. And as a reward, as the Ben Yehoyada adds, we say today by a bris milah, ironically, that taking the blood from a baby actually gives life. So when we don't paskin like Rabbi Eliezer the Milo, when we paskin like Rabbi Akiva, or we can call it the Chachamim, it's like a shayach, that a bris will be delayed. But Dafka in places where they paskin like him, right, when they did like Rabbi Eliezer, they never delayed a bris, and there was a reward. The Romans made a gezerah not to do circumcisions, but in other words, that was a result of their never delaying the bris, the chavivus of mitzvahs milah, that is not only doiches Shabbos, but even machshir milah is also doiches Shabbos. Says the Gemara Tanya, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, kol mitzvah shekiblu aleim v'simcha. Any mitzvah that the Yidden took upon themselves to do it with joy. Kigoyin milah, as it says in Tehillim, sasonoichi elim rosecha, that I, right, David HaMelech says, I rejoice over your word in the Lashon Yachid, K'moitze Shalol Rav, like Rashi tells us, Amira Yechida Shekadma L'Shar Amirais, and that's Milah, that Yidden are rejoicing over them, and he brings the whole Ma'aseh with David HaMelech that he went into a bathhouse and he became in pain that there was no mitzvahs with him. So that's the Imra Secha and Sus and Machal, right? We know Yehuda Ma'aseh Oirav Simcha V'Sasan V'Kar Sasan goes to Milah. So since we're sus on it, so therefore says the Braisa Adayin Oisin Oisa V'Simcha, we still do it with joy. Which means ad hayom hazeh, you do a bris, you make a su'udas mitzvah. No, it's joy in the Gemara means not only a feeling, having meat, having wine, you make a whole celebration. However, b'chol mitzvah shekiblu aleim b'ktato, but any other mitzvah that we didn't accept it with joy, we fought against it. When a God gave us all of the restrictions when it comes to relations, as it says in the portion of Ba'aloischa, that Yishma Moshe Sa'am Boichel Mishpachoisav. And even though it sounded like they were complaining about something else, but really he understood it was, as Chazal tell us, Al Iskei Mishpachoisav. So even now, every time there is a kosher wedding, there's always some sort of contention, there's some sort of fight. And as Chazal tell us, the Leka, Ksuba, the Leiroma, Batigra, there is never a marriage contract, right? Concerning which there isn't epis amachloikas between the parties. Okay, weiter. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Kol mitzvah shemasru Yisrael atzman aleim lemisa. If there's a mitzvah for which people went on mesiras nefesh, b'shas gezeras hamalchus, when there was such a need. For example, sadly, avodas kechavim, that was the most common one, right? If you have going back to the story already, Bizman Abai Sheni, right, from the Greeks, they were forcing us to be Ovel Avodah Zarah, right, to the Spanish Inquisition, constantly, right, Jews for Yashke, all the people that are trying to make you get involved in Avodah Zarah, and the mitzvah Bris Milah. We find this again throughout this, the Romans, they prohibited Milah by crucifixion, and nevertheless we did it. So because of our chus avis, that they were moiser nefesh, adayin hi muchzekes biyadam, it's still strong in our hands. However, b'chol mitzvah shalei masri Yisrael aleim aleim isam b'shas gezeras malchus, but any other mitzvah that when there was a gezerah, we already didn't keep it that strong. For example, tefillin, then adayin hi merupa biyadam, it's still weak in our hands until they came to Rebbe and the Rebbe reestablished tefillin. Tefillin is not weak anymore, but that's mamash from our generation. Now, from where do we know that tefillin was weak in our hands? From what? From the fact that Rabbi Yanai needed to say that tefillin, tzrichen, guf naki, like Elisha, Balkan of Fayim, we had this on DAF Mentes, and we're going to review it again. And as according to some opinions, the fact that even Elisha, Balkan of Fayim, took off his tefillin at the end of the story, that's one way of looking at it, is araya that it was weak in our hands. Or in the opposite, only Elisha Baal Kanafayim went on Mesiras Nefesh to wear tefillin, and others did not. So it was weak in the larger community. And what's the story of Elisha Baal Kanafayim? So Amar Abaya, first of all, what does Guf Naki mean? Guf Naki means that one should not pass wind while wearing them. Rabbi goes even more. Don't sleep in them, because while you're sleeping, you might pass wind in them. And now let's go to the story. Al Yisrael, and what was their decree? Whoever was tefillin on their head, Yikru Esmoicha, God forbid, they're gonna push it, they're gonna take out his brain. And Elisha was wearing tefillin in public. And and a certain Roman official saw him, and Elisha began to run away from him, and he chased Elisha. The moment he caught up to him, Elisha took the tefillin off his head, and he put them in his hand. And again, either that's the raya that even Elisha was not going to go on Mesiras Nefesh, but that's not the way we're going to learn. He went on Mesiras Nefesh, and if you remember, we learned in DAF Mem Testo Tosfos that says, how was he allowed to take it off? Why don't we learn that b'shas gezeras hamalchus, if there's a decree of the government against the practice of Yiddishkeit, then afilo al arkased the misana, we have to be moiser nefesh. So Tosfos says, Gavaldik, he says that I'm not allowed to got itreif. Mesiras nefesh if it's a gezeras malchus. A Jew is not obligated to wear tefillin the whole daytime outside, and you're not mechoyev to do so. When he took off his tefillin, he wasn't doing a sin. He just wasn't doing the mitzvahs, wearing it even in the street. So for that, you don't have to be moiser nefesh. That's what Tosfos says. We also spoke out another whole sheet in the Rishonim, that when do we say that a Jew has to give up his life, right? When it's gezeras malchus for any mitzvah, that's only if the options are not violating God's will, I'm not going to violate, and I'll die, or I'll violate and I won't die. What happens if I choose to be moiser nefesh, but I won't be able to keep it anyway? For example, the guy would catch up to him, he would rip off the tefillin. Anyways, you're not going to have your tefillin, he's taking it away from you. So if anyways, it's not your Mesiras Nefesh won't, so to say, prevent the mitzvah from being stopped, then you're not moiser nefesh. That was a whole approach there were a few times by us, during the times of the Tzemach Tzedek, that the Russian government paskin, that at least in the larger cities, the Tsar's government, Jews are not allowed to wear bigadim of Eden. They didn't like that we go around with our own bigadim. They made a takana that Eden have to dress the goyish clothing. So, then it was very simple. We used to wear long clothing, the langerekel, and the goyim wear kurtzar, they wear short jackets. So the question was, do Yidden have to go on Mesiras Nefesh and wear Yiddish bigadim? Even though that would mean, who knows what, he would go to jail or worse. So the Tzemach Tzedek paskin that we should wear goyish clothing in public. Why? Because he says, what are you going to do? You're going to wear Big Day Shabbos. You're going to wear Big Day Shabbos. You're going to wear Yiddish bigadim. You're going to wear a lange kapata. Fine. So they're going to take you. They're going to arrest you. You know what they're going to do to you? One of the two. If you're healthy, they're going to put you in the army. You know what you're going to wear in the army? The Russian army clothing, not Jewish. If you're not healthy and strong, they're going to put you in jail. You know what you're going to wear in the jail? The jail's clothing. Not Big Day Yiddish bigadim. In other words, you don't have. It's not in your koyach to keep up to keep up Big Day Yiddish bigadim. They're going to force it on you. So if anyways you're going to wear goyish bigadim, then why go? Then why wear it in jail? Stay at least home. Coming back over here. Anyways, he was allowed to do it. He took off his tefillin. But the Kazdor saw him with his hands full. What's in your hand? We'll see soon why Punky said that. The wings of a dove. And Elisha actually opened his hands. And in his hands were the wings of a dove. And that's how he got his name. And the Gemara asks, so answers the Gemara, Mishum, the Damya Knesset Yisrael Yoina, because we are compared to a dove, as it says, Kanfi Yoina Nachbo Bekesef. The wings of a dove are covered in silver. That the Evrei Seha Birak Rak Charutz, and her pinions are covered with brilliant gold. And indeed, why are we compared to a yoinama, yoinazuk, and a felmaginos aleha? Just like by a dove, the wings protected. And we had above and daf mentes machlekes, Rashi Tosfos, either the wings protected because the dove uses its wings to fight off its enemies. Other birds use its beak. Tosfos says because even when the dove is tired, it doesn't stop. It uses one wing while it rests the other. That's very meaningful because al pi Hasidus, al pi Kabbalah, the two wings is Av and Yira. So we're supposed to have both, but the Yid, somehow, if you don't feel the Ava, at least serve God Me'ira. If you don't feel the Yira, serve me Ava. We manage somehow to use even one of the wings. So Afi Yisrael, mitzvahs, maginois aleim. Okay, but all of this is coming back that we were always mechabe the mitzvah of bris milah, sos anoichi alim rosecha, and Taki, you see today that one of the biggest simchas that we make is when we celebrate the mitzvah of bris milah. Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Yitzchak. Hamachas shachachu v'leviu izmum erev Shabbos. They forgot to bring the knife, and what happened? They eviu b'Shabbos, and they brought it derech gagois v'derech chatzeros. Guys, we're turning the Amid. Okay, now from now on until the end of today, we're going to go a good chazara of the laws of Eruv. However, when they carried it, derech gagois and derech chatzeros, it was shaloi b'ritzoyin Rabbi Eliezer. It was not with the contentment of Rabbi Eliezer. Now hold on. Question is why not? Rabbi Eliezer holds machshirei milah is doiches Shabbos. So Masach Rabbi Yosef shaloi b'ritzoyin Rabbi Eliezer. Adarabah. Rabbi Eliezer who the shari. And v'chitema, I'll tell you what it means. It means shaloi b'ritzoyin Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Because Rabbi Eliezer is shari afil b'rishus harabim. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, you would not need to make an effort to carry the knife only through different Rishuyas HaYachid, Faket, since Machshirei Milah is Doiches Shabbos, take it through the Rishus HaRabim. And here again, one can ask, like we spoke at the first Tosfos, Heichad, the Efshel Shanina and Mishanina, right? You gotta minimize it. And here also, let's use the second answer in Tosfos. No, you're doing a mitzvah, you want to get it done, it's quicker to take a derech Rishus HaRabim. You're not going to delay the mitzvah by making a person jump from a roof into a yard. There's a difficulty with that. That's the second answer in Tosfos. It's ad kedei kach machshirei milah doiches Shabbos. Once you can do it, just do it. So the part is, that's why it was shaloi b'ritzoyin Rabbi Eliezer. But the question is, but with whose ratzon was it done? With Ela b'ritzoyin Rabbanan, Rabbanan in this whole sugya means Rabbi Akiva. What? It's b'ritzoyin Rabbanan? No. Rabbanan asers the asur derech Rishus HaRabim, but he asers derech Rishus HaRabim. So they didn't do it. But do you think the Chachamim allow you to carry a knife derech gagas v'derech chatzeros? And now we're introducing the third word karfifois, which is a rabim for karpeif. Karpeif is an outdoor enclosed area, but it's not enclosed for residential purposes. We're going to learn a lot about it in Eiduvin. Once you have an area that's larger than 2 sa'ah, then midrabanan has a din of a karmelis. But as long as it's not that huge, so since it's not made for residential purposes, we call it a karpeif other than a chatzir. But coming back over here, but do they hold that the isur of carrying is only derech Rishus HaRabim? I know that midoiraisa, you can carry something from a house to a yard, from a yard to a roof, from a roof to a karpeif, fine, but not midrabanan. Umishari, v'hatanya. Says clearly in Abraisa that Kishem she'ein mevi'in oiseh derech Rishus HaRabim, they're speaking about someone who forgot to bring the knife to the baby. Kach ein mevi'in oiseh, you can't violate doiraisa. And the Rabbi Akiva holds, the Chachamim hold that machshirei milah is not even doicha a rabbinic Shabbos. Ein mevi'in oiseh loy derech gagos, loy derech kafifois, loy derech chatzeros. So I don't understand the story. They did it pamachas, they forgot, and they did it shaloi b'ritzoyin Rabbi Eliezer. But Rabbi Eliezer, you can carry in a Rishus HaRabim. The Chachamim hold you can't even carry it derech these Rishus HaYachid. Say Elamar Avashi. Here we introduce Shitas Rav Shimon. Shaloi b'ritzoyin Rabbi Eliezer. Why not? Because according to Rabbi Eliezer, they could have carried it derech Rishus HaRabim. It was also Shaloi b'ritzoyin Machlekusai. Machlekusai refers to our Rabbi Akiva or the Chachamim, the consensus, the Das Rabbim, that you cannot carry it even in a rabbinic Rishus HaYachid if you didn't make an Eruv Chatzeros. Elon, they did it according to whom? According to Rab Shimon, that we have in Eruvin. The Tanan, Rab Shimon Omer, Echad Gagois, the Echad Kaltifos, the Echad Chatzeiros, Kulam Rishus Echad Heim, Lekalim, Shoshafsu B'Toichan, V'Loi Lekejlem, Shoshafsu B'Seicha Bayis. Let me explain that. If a Keli, when Shabbos came in, was in a house, even according to Rab Shimon, even if you made an Eruv Chatzeros allowing you to carry from a house to the Chatzer, and you brought it to the Chatzer, but since it began when Shabbos came in the bayis, so it's considered a Keli belonging to the bayis. Even according to Rab Shimon, you may not take it to your next doors, to your neighbor's Chatzer. You cannot take it to someone else's roof, to a karpef. You can't do that. But a Keli that did not begin Shabbos in a bayis, it began Shabbos in my Chatzer, and I'm your neighbor. I'm allowed to carry it from my Chatzer to your Chatzer. I can carry it from my Chatzer to your Gag. I can carry it from my Chatzer to your Karpef. Or if it began in my Gag, it can go from Gag to Chatzer, or from Gag to Karpef, from Karpef to Gag, from Karpef to Chatzer. Rab Shimon holds that the need of making an Eruv Chatzeros, being that these different Reshuyas don't belong to the same person, is always house related. So therefore, the story must have been, at least clearly, Tosfos goes that way. All right, look inside the Tosfos, that the Chen Hoya Oisa Ismail, there's a question as to what the Shitas Rashi is, but let's go with Tosfos, that the story was that the knife did not begin in a house. And even though they took the knife from my backyard to your backyard, to Chaim Yankel's backyard, to someone else's roof, even though we don't paskin like Rabbi Eliezer, we don't paskin that Machshir Mila is Deicha Shabbos. Nevertheless, they were allowed to do it because according to Rab Shimon, you b'chlal don't need an Eruv Chatzeros if an article is being passed from one ownership to another ownership, different Reshuas HaYachid, if it's not house related. So is Shitas Rab Shimon. Very good. Says the Amar Boy Minei Rab Zedem Rabasi. A new question. Mavoy Shaloi Nishtatz Boy. We'll see how this question is related to our topic. Now, what's the issue over here? Quickly, you have, in the times of Chazal, most people's homes opened up to Chatzerim, and there was a minimum of two houses to one Chatzer. So the Chatzer really belonged to both houses. And again, just for that, you have to make an Eruv Chatzeris because the Chatzer belongs to both. My house only belongs to me. So for me to carry from my house to the Chatzer, or from the Chatzer to my house, we need to make it that Ki'ilu, both of us own both of each other's houses. That's what the Eruv Chatzeris accomplishes. In other words, if your food is put into my house, that means that you have permission to go into my house. So that right that you have to enter my house means you have some ownership in my house. And why did I concede some of my house to you? Because you obviously are giving me the same rishus to go into your house. That's an Eruv Chatzeris. Now, the Chatzerisin, you would have at least two Chatzerisin that would go into some sort of alley, mavui. We're speaking about a mavui that's closed off from three sides. The mavui opens up to the Reshus Harabim, but you didn't go from the Chatzer into the Reshus Harabim, which is more or less now. Today you're going from your front yard into the street. Not that the street is such a big Reshus Harabim. There, everyone had a cul-de-sac. Everyone had this closed little alley, a little street. So you had two Chatzeris going into one mavui. Now, you have to be ma'arev the chatzeros in order for you to be allowed to carry from the house into the chatzer. And similarly, for you to be allowed to carry from the chatzer to the mavui, you have the same issue. The chatzer belongs to these two homes. The other chatzer belongs to the other two homes. The mavui belongs to everyone. It's not the same ownership. So you would also do something very similar, not to confuse the words. Everyone would also participate in foods, and everyone would have the right to go everywhere. We call that a shituf. It's the same concept. So there's an Eruv Chatzeros and a shituf muvois. So the question is, if there was no shituf muvois done, now did they make an Eruv Chatzeros or not? He's not mentioning. We'll get to that in a moment. The question is, are you allowed to carry in the mavui daladamas? Now, atkan b'chlal, when we learn all the dinim of Eruvin, if let's say me and you we share the same chatzer and we did not make an Eruv Chatzeros, all that means is that we're not allowed to carry from our house into the yard or from the yard into the house. But something that when Shabbos came in was in the Chatzer, of course you can carry it in the Chatzer. Why not? Why not? The Chatzer belongs to me and you, Reshus HaYachad never means it belongs to one person. Reshus HaYachad can even mean it belongs to everyone. City Hall is Reshus HaYachad for Shabbos. We're not changing ownerships. And indeed, without an Erev Chatzeris, you can carry in the Chatzir, even if the Chatzir is who knows how big, from one end to the other. But by a Mavui, he has a question. If one did not make a sheet of Mavois, can you carry in that Mavui or maybe not? And he explains the question. Mi Amrinon, look inside the Gemara, do we say, Kechatzir Dami, which is, Ma Chatzir Afal Gav Deloi Eru, nevertheless, Mutal Taltal Bekuloi, Hai Nami, Afal Gav Deloi Nishtatfa by Mutal Taltal Bekuloi. For two reasons. Number one, the chatzir is lay arba mechitzos and haya mavoi again. Even though we're speaking about a mavoi that's closed off from three sides, but one side is open to the reshus harabim. And even though this mavoi has a lechi or a koira, or according to the Tanaim holds, you need both. It has both. It has some sort of reminder that demarks the end of the mavoi, the beginning of the reshus harabim. But still, it's not for mechitzos. Hi, Leslie arba mechitzos. So maybe midrabanan, maybe it should be like a carmelis. Inami, another difference between a mavoi and a chatzir. Chatzir is lay diurin. People live in the chatzir. Now, no one lives in the chatzir, but yes, my friends, in the times of Chazal, you mamish expanded your residential living into the yard. That's the whole reason in Bava Basra, there's Hazikriya. People mamish, even now, if you have a very little house, you don't have a breira, you're going to just extend what you do in your home into your yard. No one did it in a mavoi. A mavoi was a place only that you don't go straight from the chatzir to the reshus harabim. You would walk through the mavoi. You don't live there. Hi, but the mavoi lays lay the urin. So again, the baya is if you made a shit of mavais, clearly you can carry there. Question again is if there's no shit of mavais, is there a restriction in carrying in the mavoi itself? So that was the question that Rab Zera asked of Rab Asi and Shasik. Ravasi was silent, which means at that time Ravasi didn't know the answer, so he didn't answer. Zimnin but later Rab Zera saw Ravasi sitting, and he was chazening over the following, and he said that Amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish. The Shlakish says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, of Shabbos. It was once a case that they didn't bring the knife. They view Shabbos and they brought it on Shabbos. How were they allowed to do it? And what's the problem again? That because it sounds like they followed Rabbi Eliezer. And the question was, which is Rabbi Akiva. That's wrong. First of all, Chada, that Rabbi Eliezer shamutehu. Here you have the expression. What does it mean he's shamuteh? So Rashi brings both interpretations. Look inside our Rashi, it's towards the bottom of the Amid, that he was barcheyu. They blessed him means that they banned him, that they put him into a chedim. That's the story in the Tanur Shalach Noi in Bava Metzia Daf Nun Tes Amud Beis, that when he got action, even though he had all of the proofs with him, not only did they say that the Bad Torah Lav Bashamayim, at the end they put him into a chedim. So because of that, we shouldn't paskin like him. And then he brings from the Yerushalmi that Shamuti is from the word Shammai, that since Rabbi Eliezer is Mitalmidei Be Shammai, and Bachlal Be Silul Be Shammai, it's not Stama Machloikis. We say that Be Shammai is not a Mishnah. That's very important. And all of the commentators explain, when you have two people that argue, even if you're paskin like one, okay, so there's an argument. The other one says otherwise. When you have the Machloikas of Be Shammai and Be Silul became so big, there were two camps, Be Shammai, Be Silul, it was almost like we were having two Toiras. So in order to stop this, everything we were different, they said, no, Be Shammai, Be Mark, and Be Silul is not even a Mishnah. And after they established that, then it's more than any other Machloikas, and you cannot paskin like Be Shammai. So number one is, how did they paskin? He's Shamuti. And number two, V'oit, Yachid V'Rabim, Malachi Kerabim. Even though in our Mishnah, again, it's Rabbi Akiva, but it's not Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was mouthing the Shita that everyone is ascribed to. So that was the question. That is, and then he's chazening what happened. This is all Rabbi Asi saying. But for Amar Rabbi Oishia, rechapt. I'll tell you what happened. That she'elis es Rabbi Yehuda ha-goizer. I once asked, goizer means the cutter, the moil. I once asked Rabbi Yehuda the cutter, and he told me that what happened there was that the issue was that there was no shituv mavois. And and the knife was brought, again, we're going to go with Tosfos, the knife was not in the house, the baby was not in the house. The reason why they carried it is because they were not violating anything. They were simply carrying it from one end of the mavi to the other end of the mavi. Now, what do we see clearly over here? We see that if even when you don't make a shituf muvais, clearly, according to the way they paskin, taka means you cannot carry mechatzer l'mavi. I get that. But you could carry daladamas in that mavi. Now, it's interesting that the Rabbi was sharing all of this, not going to get to the kasha of it. When Abzeda asked him, if you don't do a shituf in the mavi, can you carry daladamas? He didn't know. Later, he was speaking about the Shlakish, and then he remembered Rabbi Oishia. So all of a sudden, Abzeda gets his answer. But he was wondered, why didn't you tell me that before? So Amar later, Abzeda tells Ravasi, I don't understand. Svira Lamar, you're quoting this whole story. When you quoted this, that Rabbi Oishia explained the story, you didn't challenge it. That means you accepted it. Svira Lamar, Mavish L'Shatvavoy, Mutal Taltal B'Kuloi. So Amar Lei, he said, yeah. When I heard that answer, I had resonated. I been moide with that answer. So Amar Lei, if that's the case, meaning not that you told me the opposite, you didn't tell me the answer, you didn't know. Dilman is giving the reason for that. Maybe, says Rab Zera to Rabasi, when I asked you that question, you forgot. How did you remember it? That's the rule. When you start to chazer your Torah, he was chazering what Reish Lakish says. After he chazered Reish Lakish, he remembered what Rabbi Oishia says. In other words, the expression here in the Gemara is Dilma Agav Shitfach Roit L'cha Gemara. That because of your reviewing, your learning runs back to you. And maybe Taka, when I asked you, you forgot, and because of your chazara, you remembered. Is that the case? So Amalei, Rav Asi told Rav Zera Taka, that's what happened. When you asked me, I forgot. I didn't know. I didn't answer. Now that I was reviewing what Reish Lakish says, once I chazed Reish Lakish, I remembered Rabbi Oishia. Agav Shitva, Rehita Ligamari. I remember as a child, what my teachers always used to tell me, right? In Ta'azveni Yoim, Yoimayim Azveka, right? So what is that? That if you're going to abandon me, the Torah, for one day, Torah says, I'll abandon you for 2 days. So my Rav Shlomo Strux, my Belzer Rebbe told me like this, Gavaldi, he says that if you're a city and you're walking away 1 day, so after you travel for 1 day, how far are you? 1 day away. But if for every step you go in this direction, the city goes in the other direction. So when you go 1 day away, at the end, you're 2 days away. It says when you don't learn Torah for 1 day, it's not that 1 day you didn't learn Torah. For every day you don't learn Torah, you're going in this direction, the Torah is going in the opposite direction. In Tazveni Yoim, you're Mayim Azveka. But the same thing is in the positive, that when you come back, when you start learning, it's not only that you're running back to the Torah is running back to you. So since he was chazering his Torah, he remembered something that he already forgot. The best segula for remembering your learning is chazering your learning, not chazering that detail. Once you start reviewing, everything comes back to you. Okay. Itmer says the Gemara. Unlike we just chazered at the end, Rabasi remembered. No, if there's no shituf mavos, ein metaltelen boy ela ba'arba ames. We're going to limit this in a moment, but we are saying now that a mavoi that has no shituf, not only may you not carry from the chatzar to the mavoi, no, the mavoi midrabanan becomes like a karmelis. You may not even carry daladamas in the mavoi. Now, again, we're going to limit it. So says the Gemara, Amar Abaya, Ha Milsa Amar Rab Zera. True, right? Rab Zera Amarav. When Rab Zera said it, V'loi Pirsha, that means he did not fully tell you what Rav meant. Ada Asadaba Baravua, Upersha. Now we're going to learn already in detail that Rab Zera didn't say. That what? It depends. Listen to this. If the people, again, there's 2 houses at least going into one chatzar, then there's at least 2 chatzeros going into the mavi. So if there was an Eruv chatzeros, you made an Eruv chatzeros, you could carry from the house into the chatzar. You forgot to make a shituf, which means you cannot carry from the chatzar to the mavi. It is only there that the Raf says, as Rab Zera quoted correctly, a metaltalin boy in the mavi itself, only ela ba'arba amas. However, Rav himself is moida that if loy eruv chatzeros im batim, if you did not make an eruv chatzeros, right? If you did not make an eruv chatzeros, then muter letaltel bekuloi. Ironically, if you didn't make an eruv chatzeros, it means you can't carry from the house into the chutzner. By eruv chatzeros, by a chutzner, we said before, no doubt whether you made an eruv, whether you didn't make an eruv, in the chutzner itself you can always carry. But he's saying that if loy eruv chatzeros mabatim, Rav was not machmer then you are allowed to carry in the mavli. Now Rashi, 2 lines before the bottom of the Amud makes it clear. We're talking about an article that when Shabbos came in was in the mavli. Can you move it in the mavli itself? So you're quoting Rav. You Rav Zayda, no, you didn't. You were not mafanish it correctly. It depends. Now the question is why? What's the logic behind it? Why would it depend? Now I get it. You can argue if there's no sheet of mavois, the mavli is already close to the Rishus Harabim. The mavli is being used by more people. The mavli doesn't have 4 walls. No one lives in the mavli. Okay, so midrabanan were machmer if there's no shituf. But why would it hinge on whether there was an eruv chatzeros or not? He was guessing. What would be the logic? I'll tell you. I think I know why. Because what happens then? When you make an eruv chatzeros, that allows you to carry from the chutzner into the bayis, from the bayis into the chutzner. So let's view it that the chutzner becomes an extension of the house, which means that maybe halachically we can keilu say there is no more chutzner here. There's only house here. Everyone is living everywhere. If that's the way you and therefore what? And the Rav L'Tai made Amarav that ein hamavi niter b'lachi v'kaira. A mavi is only taka, not a carmelis, and you can carry in the mavi only ad shiur DAF kuf lamed aleph right top of the amud batim b'chatzeres psucham l'toichoi. The definition of a mavi is you have to have batim and chatzeros going into the mavi. And maybe if you made an eruv, what happens when you make an eruv? Maybe halachically, the chatzeros, so to say, are part of the bayis. So there's no halachic chutzner. If there's no halachic chutzner, then it's not the mavui. And if it's not the mavui, yeah, I know that it's closed off from 3 sides, but midrabanan, it's still considered open. And therefore midrabanan, it's like a carmelis. If that's the logic, it doesn't work. Because then, if an eruv was not made, that means you cannot carry from the house into the chutzner. So then, even though the chutzner is adjacent to the mavui, but the batim are completely cut away from the mavui because there's no eruv. So why don't we say then the opposite? Let's halachically look like these houses are command this timi dummy, and here the mavui has chatzeros, but the mavui doesn't have batim. Oh, so therefore we don't say that. So the Gemara says we're still attempting to add to stand this logic. But no, that since that there is a halacha that if you did not make an eruv chatzeros, if you didn't make an eruv chatzeros, what happens if everyone is mevatel their rights in the chutzner to one person? So then that one person owns his house, and that one person owns the entire yard. If you are mevatel the reshus, we'll learn a lot about this in eruv, and even on Shabbos, that person can carry from the house into the yard. So since there's a possibility of bittul reshus, so you can't say that the mavli has no batim, has no houses. It does have, because this guy, his house could go all the way to the mavli, because even though there's no eruv chatzeros, he can carry from his house onto the yard. The Gemara says, well, that's not a good answer, because even though you can be mevatel everyone's part in the chutzner to one balabayis, and that bias can go from the bias to the chutzner all the way up until the mavui, but that's only one bias. So if only bias ikar, batim leka. You have to have 2 batim, really 4 batim. It's 2 batim to one chutzner and 2 chatzeros to one mavui. So the Gemara says, well, no, I can tell you how there's batim, because you can take turns in the bittul reshus. After the mitzafer of Matilde legavachad, u'Matilde u'lepanya legavachad. So yeah, it's shaykh that 2 batim on different times of Shabbos will have access to the bias chutzner all the way up until the mavui. The Gemara rejects that because you don't have 2 batim at the same time, and therefore it's nothing to do with halachically you don't have a bias, halachically you don't have a chutzner. Why did Rav differentiate? He's machmer that you cannot carry in the mavui if you didn't make a shit of mavois. But he says, when you cannot carry, only when you made a native chatzeris. When you made a native chatzeris, you can. If you didn't make a native chatzeris, you could. Why? Salam Ravashi like this. Me got him lachatzeris sheya osru, but and the guy's nachamol. We just learned Rab Shimon. That's the beauty today. According to Rab Shimon, if you take the reshus hayachad of a bias out of the equation, you are always allowed to carry from one domain to another domain. Meaning you can carry from a gag to a chatzir, from a chatzir to a gag, from a karpeth. All these types of reshus hayachid you can carry from one to the other. The problem is only that you have a bias involved. So if you made an eruv chatzeres, which means you can carry from your house into the chatzir, now there might be an article in the chatzir that began in a bias. That article, even with Rab Shimon, cannot be carried further to another chatzir or to a gag. If you did not make an eruv chatzeres, which means nothing from the house will go into the chatzir because you can't carry from the house into the chatzir, so then anything in the chatzir, according to Rab Shimon, could be carried into the mavui. So if you can carry it from a chatzir into the mavui, it makes sense that you can carry it in the mavui. Daladamas, Gavaldik, Noleke. In other words, based on Rab Shimon and Rab, obviously, and Rashi says that in Eruvin we see that Rab does paskin like this kula of Rab Shimon. It makes a lot of sense. So when there's an eruv chatzeros, then things from the bias can make their ways into the chatzir. Since then you cannot carry from the chatzir into the mavui because you didn't make a shit of mavais. So then Rav can say, then I don't want you to carry even daladamas in the mavui. But the moment you are allowed to carry from the chatzir into the mavui, why is that? Because you didn't make an eruv, so I don't have to worry that something began in the house. If you can carry from the chatzir into the mavui, then you can carry daladamas in the mavui itself. God willing to be continued. Okay, back to that. It was a little bit of Eruvin, a little intro. Sound was good?
Yeah. What time did you start today?
A quarter to. I put it in there last time.
We've been going at it since yesterday. You missed a lot. Have a good day. Have an easy fast.
Tomorrow 6 o'clock.